are searches for extraterrestrial intelligence. Why do you want to find life in space, my secular friend? And a lot of times they'll say things like, well, it'd be nice to know that we're not alone in the universe.
Stop it.
Yeah. We've found that if you track where these UFOs are found, it's almost always along the lines of cruise ships.
All right, guys, this is fascinating. The Wretched has on a Christian astrophysicist, and he's here to give his explanation on what these UFOs are. And it's a little bit different because it's on the opposite side, guys. And we're going to be seeing if he has any legitimate proof for them and what he thinks the UFOs are. Anyway, guys, don't forget to hit the like button. I'm trying to hit 100,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and I know we can do it with your help, so thank you so much for all the love and support. Let's get into it.
Fellow joining us in studio, unidentified flying objects. Dr. Jason Lyle, our Fortis Fellow, joining us in studio. Do you have a problem with unidentified flying objects?
No, I mean,
because they're unidentified.
Yeah, they're unidentified, right? Yeah.
So quit ascribing that there's something from outer space, and you got Kazoo piloting some sort of flying machine. All right, this is also one of your areas of expertise, besides being an astrophysicist. And I don't want to share your discovery because I have no idea. What did you discover, or what did you? So there was something about stars and things. Well, you discovered something that is attributed to you.
I've discovered a few things. One thing I discovered in my doctoral research was giant cell boundaries. Those are those are large overturning cells on the sun that were predicted to exist theoretically, but I was actually able to detect them using the SOHO spacecraft and using some computer programs that I wrote. I was able to detect the boundaries of these giant cells.
See, that's why you and I get along so well, because of our shared interest in things like this that you're talking about. So outer space, and of course you cover UFOs. It seems, I think we've had them since the Twilight Zone. We're kind of fascinated by this. And isn't it funny, by the way, how often even today when somebody tries to draw a picture of an extraterrestrial, they look eerily similar to what we were doing in the 50s.
Yeah, isn't that interesting?
So unimaginative, right? If you're going to create something, how's about it doesn't look at all like anything in God's creation? Why don't you try to never...
But what if it's because they've actually seen it and it's really similar every time? It's weird because I wish they would get into, I feel like these guys are so not even into the supernatural. It's weird. It's like, no, it's just everything is explainable. And 100%, I think everything can be explained from God and from the Bible. But does that mean that these things, people are not seeing legitimate supernatural things? That's what I wonder. Something from the unseen realm?
Nonetheless, before we get to extraterrestrials, UFOs seem to have been making a comeback, that there's been more sightings, and that even, if I recall, that the government was saying, yeah, we think that there's UFOs out there. Are there UFOs out there?
Well, if you don't know what something is and it's in the sky, to you, it's a UFO. To me, it's probably an IFO. It's an identified flying object. Because most things I spend a lot of time outside at night as an astronomer looking up, and so I've seen a lot of cool stuff. And at this point in my life, most of it I can pretty well identify.
Yeah, and I've actually, from some of your work, I've got the list of explanations, which I think are super fascinating. Yeah. Why do you suppose we almost seem to want, as a culture, we want these unidentified flying objects? We like it. Why?
Well, I think it's interesting. It's something that's novel, but I think especially secularists, they want UFOs because they want there to be intelligent life out in space.
Yeah, I think that's it too.
Yeah. And again, I
don't know, maybe true, but I think there's a lot of people who believe in God who think that there could be something else out there or something supernatural. I think also that if there's a possibility let me know what you guys think, because they cover a lot of details that a lot of people talk about, but they think if there would possibly be aliens, would that mean that there isn't a God who created all things? I don't know. I don't think so.
It comes from a rejection of the biblical God, because I've had the opportunity to talk with a number of secularists there are people who there are programs like SETI. I think that's more or less defunct now, but nonetheless, there are searches for extraterrestrial intelligence. why do you want to find life in space, my secular friend? And a lot of times they'll say things like, well, it'd be nice to know that we're not alone in the universe, and maybe there's...
We're not.
We're not, yeah, I know.
But okay.
And that's my point, and that's my point. Or there would be nice if there was some civilization, some life out there that had the answers to life's questions, or maybe they have advanced technology where they could heal our diseases and so on. And I'm thinking, oh yeah, there is a solution to all those things. He's called God, and right, because we're not alone in the universe, and God can heal our diseases, and God's the one that has the answers to life. When you reject that God, that need for Him remains, and I think that ETs are sort of a replacement of the biblical God.
Okay, without getting black helicoptery, not that I'm not opposed to those things, but NASA and its desire to find life on Mars and other planets, do you think it's the same motivation that drives that?
Yeah, it is, and to vindicate evolution too, because the idea is if life evolved on Earth, it probably evolved elsewhere. So those two convictions are why they want to find life.
Okay, somebody might say, "Come on, no, it advances technology." By having some sort of a goal, it helps us. We wouldn't have the computers we had if it weren't for that. But worldview is lurking behind everything. And we would be silly to think that it doesn't include NASA and their desire to try to find life out there.
Scientists are people too, and we have our own worldviews, and that affects not only the conclusions that we draw, but the motivations, the various programs that are going to be funded, the reason for that funding, and so on. And yes, we can take the technology that I think has been misused to try and find life, and nonetheless use those discoveries to glorify God, which is really the best reason to explore space, is to glorify God. So we can use that, but nonetheless, I would disagree with their motivations for doing a lot of these things.
All right, so unidentified flying objects, you believe are IFOs, which means we can identify them.
In most cases, yes.
Here's your list. This is from your website, biblicalscienceinstitute.org.
.com.
Are you a pagan? I thought it was a Christian ministry.
We have the .org too. So
but you go with the .com. Yeah, you got to get all of them these days,
right.
Otherwise you're in big trouble.
Right.
All right, you start out with balloons.
Yes. You know, especially Mylar balloons, we found that, a lot of times pilots...
From the parties
on the ships.
Stop it.
Yeah. We found that if you track where these UFOs are found, it's almost always along the lines of cruise ships. Isn't that interesting?
Do you guys really are buying this? That maybe there's always, like someone said, 99% of these accusations are probably just some explanation, some like actual explanation that you can figure out, and it's not like something supernatural. But I think that there are actually things that are happening from the unseen realm happening all the time that are not just balloons, But these guys like to take that everything's explainable and there's nothing barely ever happening supernaturally. That's what it seems like. But the Bible does talk about we do not battle against flesh and blood, but against the principalities and rulers in the unseen realm. And the Bible also talks about be careful because you might be entertaining angels. Well, those are supernatural.
No, so they're coming off of boats?
Yeah.
And it's these inflatable balloons that you bring to a party.
Right.
They're letting them fly, and people are
pilots,
seeing them.
yeah.
They're picking it up perhaps in some sort of looking glass.
Yeah.
And you think they're balloons?
A lot of them are, yeah.
And now has that been verified, or is that just speculation?
See, he says a lot of them are. A lot of them. That's what he says for everything. But he doesn't know every single one.
It's been verified that if you plot where these UFOs are identified, they tend to follow the lines of cruise ships that are having parties, and so it makes sense. Yeah.
Okay, now the one thing about that explanation, though, is a balloon is this big. How is somebody going to see a balloon this big and it looks kind of like a fuzzy sort of spaceship?
Well, some of them are Mylar, where they reflect the sunlight really well. You catch the sunlight at a bright angle and you see this bright spot, or they'll pick it up on their. They have other scanning instruments. It's not necessary.
That's pretty cool. Happy birthday. Okay, but those aren't necessarily everything that people are seeing. Nowhere's close.
Early by eye.
Right.
Yeah.
When these pictures that we see or these videos that we see, typically, that's not just like somebody's cell phone showing these. What are they looking through to see these objects?
Yeah, there are instruments that they use to, to lock on with their missiles and so on. And I've seen some of these where, it looks like it's rotating and things like that. I'm like, I know what's going on there. Because when the thing moves, it has to physically turn. But then the computer uprights it, so that's why it looks like it's spinning that way. And then the line is caused by an overexposure of the surrounding pixels. I've seen that kind of thing because I've taken pictures with a CCD through my telescope, and I get the same effect.
What is your explanation for that ship that apparently was hit by a missile and it kept on going? What do you have to say about that, though? Why do you think they're revealing this if it's not something?
So I can tell what's causing that.
Balloons from cruise ships.
Some of them, yes.
That's such a hoot. And by the way, who is the nerd who tracked that these identified these objects were in the shipping lanes of cruise ships?
I don't know who did the study.
Who put that together?
Yeah, I don't
That's
know.
fascinating. Yeah. But there are other explanations, including drones.
Yeah.
They're everywhere.
Yeah. There are companies that do light shows with drones now. You can hire them and they'll do a
wow.
show. Yeah.
Lasers, I presume.
I don't know exactly how it works, but they organize the drone and they have lights on them and they can do them at night.
It's not lasers. It's literally just drones that can go into the place that makes it look like a certain object. I guess some of them in New York probably were drones, 100%, or probably all of them. I think that wasn't just, I don't think that was any UFO. I think that was legitimate drones searching for things that was super high up in intelligence and they couldn't tell you what it was.
And do different shapes and things. I've seen videos of them. I've not seen them in person.
And they are a flying object.
Yeah.
But because of the technology or maybe the speed or the distance, it's a little blurry, so we ascribe UFO, and you're saying, no, it could be a drone.
Yeah.
All right. And have we, with any of this laundry list that you have we discovered any, it's like, oop, there's the balloon, oop, there's the drone? Or is this just our thinking that it could be?
Well, I think in some cases, yeah. I think in some cases we know that. We know that's, you get closer and you go, oh, it's a balloon. You get close enough, oh, there's the drone. Oh, there's the guy driving the drone. Yeah, I think in some cases we know.
Yeah, but we never get that follow-up story, do we?
No, we don't. That's not interesting. That's not exciting.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the problem with gossip, too, by the way. All right. Yeah. Temperature inversions can cause all sorts of interesting visual effects. Explain.
So a temperature inversion, normally as you go higher, the temperature gets cooler. But in some cases, you'll get an inversion where as you go up and it gets warmer, and that creates a very stable sort of condition. But it also it causes light to refract in unusual ways. And I've seen this happen. I've only seen it once, but I've seen it happen. It happens especially in areas that are very, very flat. And it will cause what's in the distance to appear upside down. It is remarkable. There are sand dunes from which you can see the Chicago skyline, and if you get an inversion, the skyline will look upside down. The buildings will be upside down. I've seen pictures of this. It's remarkable. And if you didn't know what was going on, you're saying, why does the city look upside down? But it can distort other things that are in the distance as well and make them flipped. So light refraction, light does refract, and temperature inversions will do that.
And it could cause some of these supposed sightings.
Yeah, there was, in fact, there were some lights in, I forget if it was someplace in the Southwest, I think Texas or someplace like that, where they were seeing UFOs along the horizon. And they then later discovered that it was due to car lights on a highway, but it only happened during temperature inversions, where you could see farther than you normally can because of the way the light refracts.
Wow, that's interesting. That one is very well a possibility, for sure. At the end of the day, when people think they see certain things, I obviously don't think that is from outer space, from a far, far away galaxy. I do think that it is interdimensional from the unseen realm, spiritual beings.
And if there's no traffic, you don't see them. Isn't that interesting? And so they were able to correlate that.
Hey, see, I can just hear the news reporter. A UFO was spotted today in Chicago, wherever. And then they discover, oh, wait a second, it had to do with traffic lights. We never get that follow-up.
Yeah.
A correction from our story 3 weeks ago. Turns out we have no idea what we're talking about. Right. You just don't get that.
Right.
All right. Lens flames are a common source of UFO reports.
Lens flares?
Lens flares.
I need my glasses.
Yeah. Well, there used to be, and I don't know that they're happening anymore, but there was a company called the Iridium phone company, and they had satellites in orbit, and these satellites, I think they've all deorbited now, but these satellites, when they would catch the sun at a certain angle, it would be incredibly bright light, and brighter than Venus. They were stunning, and they're predictable. There's a website where you can go and you can calculate, because the website uses a little Java app to calculate when a particular spot on Earth will be illuminated by these satellites. And I used to, when I was back in grad school and I was doing sessions with my students, I'd say, hey, student, look up right there and wait about 5 seconds. And then this bright star would appear and then vanish, and they were, ooh. And in the ancient world, I would have been crowned a king for being able to do that.
Right, that's right.
But today you can predict it on the internet. Now those particular satellites, I think, have all been deorbited. But nonetheless, certain times satellites will catch the sun at the right angle, and you'll get this bright flare, and they're stunning. And if you don't know what it is, you'd be like, "Are we under attack? What's going on?"
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. So, like I said, lens flames.
Or lens flares. Sure.
Okay, fine. Let's not quibble. Rocket launches are occasionally reported as UFOs.
Yeah, that happens, especially when one blows up, which does occasionally happen. But yeah, they look spectacular. If you've ever seen a rocket launch, I got to see the space shuttle launch when I was a kid. And it was a night launch, and it was absolutely spectacular. But if you didn't know what was going on, there's this object that's going up. It looks like it's going up into space. It is. It's called a rocket.
Yeah, and we're doing it.
Right. Exactly.
And we're identifiable.
Yeah.
All right, so that could be an explanation. Yeah. Various kinds of meteors may be reported as UFOs.
Yeah, I mean, most meteors, most people just zip and falling star, and most people recognize that. That's a falling star, that's a meteor. But occasionally you get one that comes in at a very shallow angle, and it'll look very bright, and it startles people because it's not what they're expecting. Or a very slow meteor, especially a satellite reentry. Satellite reentries look like a very slow meteor. I've only seen a couple in my life. They're spectacular. Very bright falling star, and it's stunning to watch. If you don't know what it is, to you it's a UFO.
All right, so you've got a rare...
All the things that they're explaining, though, obviously are very explainable. A lot of those things, for sure. But what about the things that are unexplainable? There are so much more things out there. I would love for them to tackle this, but they're probably not. And they're going to talk about Jesus dying on the cross for alien sins and the possibility of that. And I get what they're saying. I wish they would dive into the spiritual stuff.
Atmospheric phenomenon, and your list goes on and on. Aircraft could be a UFO, and just some flat-out hoaxes. All of that to say, there are some reasonable explanations for what most likely secularists would say are unidentified flying objects. However, there is an aspect of this mysterious conversation that needs addressing. What about ET? Are there extraterrestrial beings, specifically advanced life? How can the Bible help us answer that question without looking at any of our supposed discoveries about any of the fancy drawings of the video games of how does the Bible help us answer the question, is there extraterrestrial life out there?
Well, the Bible gives an overview of everything, of the universe, and so that's the first place I would look if I wanted to know if there's life out in space. And I would say the Bible suggests that no, there's not life out in space, because if you look at Genesis, the earth really is very special. Isaiah 45:18 says that God formed the earth to be inhabited. And although it doesn't say, and he didn't form the rest of the universe to be inhabited, that seems to be the implication,
right,
is that the earth is uniquely designed for life. And indeed, in Genesis, if we look at the creation days, 5 of the 6 creation days, God is working on the earth, making it right for life. He takes one day, day 4, that first Wednesday, and creates everything else, all the other stars, all the other planets. The Hebrew word kochab would include stars and planets. So all the other planets besides Earth are made on day 4. Earth, God spends 5 of the 6 creation days working on Earth. It's the focus of his creation.
All right, so it doesn't say.
I think there are explanations for these. People have claimed to encounter aliens. Well, every time that they encounter these, sometimes they have very, very specific messages from these alien type species. And what are they? Tell me. They're always usually against God and Jesus. Why do you think that is? Because they're probably demonic.
There's no life out there.
Correct.
But it aims toward, this is where I do life.
Yes.
On this planet.
That seems to be the implication.
All right. Would there be any other biblical leanings to help us answer the question, does ET exist?
Yeah, if you wanted to think about, civilizations out there in space, Vulcans and Klingons, and I like science fiction, I enjoy it, but the biblical universe, the real universe, doesn't seem to support that. God says he has made from one blood or from one man all nations. And so that's interesting. That means there can't be other nations out there in space, because then they would not be descended from Adam. And it affects our theology as well. Because if you have Vulcans and Klingons out there, you realize they can't be saved, because according to the Bible, according to biblical law, it has to be a relative to take your place, to redeem you, the principle of the kinsman redeemer. And so it has to be a relative of you, a relative of Adam, a descendant of Adam, that takes our place on the cross to pay for our sins. But Lieutenant Worf, he's out of luck, because he's not descended from Adam. And so if he sinned even once, he's got a problem, because Jesus can't pay for his sins. Now, the comeback would be, well, some people would say, well, maybe Jesus went and became a Klingon and died for them.
Okay, that's pretty fantastic.
But then the problem with that is the Bible says he died once for all. He was raised incorruptible, and that means he's never going to die again. So Jesus died once, and it was on earth that Jesus paid for the sins of all human beings.
I'm trying to imagine, are there any Christians that argue for ET and twist their, you just said that they would say that maybe Jesus appeared somewhere else in Klingon form to die for them. That's just totally fantastic. There's no basis, isn't that kind of stretching the Bible beyond what it can bear in order to somehow justify the idea of ET?
Yeah, I think it is. And yes, there are Christians that do that, and there are Christians in the past who have done that.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, see, I could have made that up, but I would have been silly in doing it. But you're saying, no, people seriously took that position.
Yeah, and then my counter-argument again would be he died once for all. He's raised incorruptible, which means he's never going to die again.
I would agree with that 100%. They never talk about these things that aren't explainable that I wish they would have. Like Jesus, yes, died for all of mankind, but that doesn't mean obviously he's dying for spiritual beings, demonic beings, guys, or angelic beings. He died for human beings because they've sinned and they've fallen short. It has nothing to do with the spirituality of the other beings. And it's clear that God created those too. So God created other life, maybe not physical life, but spiritual life. It's different.
That indicates that salvation is unique to earthlings.
All right. Okay, I'm playing with this in my head a little bit. So maybe these beings, but they're not human beings, so they're just like an animal. They're like a cat. They aren't going to live for forever, so they just die, and that's the end of it. So there we can have ET.
Well, some people would argue that. And then my question would be, why do they die when Adam was the one that sinned? The animals on earth die because they are under Adam's dominion. God gave Adam dominion over every living thing that creeps on the earth. But if you have beings out in space, they're not under Adam's dominion. Why would they die as a result of Adam's sin? And yet, the Bible indicates all creation groans under this bondage of corruption. So how can that be? It makes sense if the living beings are confined to earth and we're all under Adam's authority.
All right, now that's the biblical leaning that would indicate no ET. But what if NASA, I think water seems to be like the thing that they're just dying to find out there someplace. For the Christian worldview, and you saying, hey, there's probably not life out there, what if they did find water? What if they did find a microbe that appears to be a living thing? Would that undermine the Bible?
No, because the Bible, again, doesn't say there are no microbes in space. It doesn't say there's no life in space. I've argued that you'd have theological problems if you have intelligent beings that are made in God's image on other planets, because then they can't be saved.
Right.
And so that's a problem. If you had animals on another planet, that wouldn't necessarily be a theological problem. I just think the Bible hints that that's probably not the case. That because God put Adam in charge of, he gave him dominion over all the creeping things that creep on the earth.
On the earth, but maybe there's something else that are not humans or animals that don't need to be saved from their sins. I think they're looking at it all wrong, but I probably hold the more similar view to them in possible different ways. But I'm curious, I wonder if they have any thoughts on the Nephilim or the supernatural.
And so there would be animals that would not be under Adam's dominion. It creates some theological tension, but I don't think it wouldn't refute the Bible, let's put it that way. That being said, I don't expect to find that out in space.
Yeah,
but I'm just thinking that people bristle these days at the idea that this blue dot is special because everything is the same and we couldn't be better than outer space, could we? All right, real quick. Give me one scientific proof that ET isn't phoning home anytime soon?
Well, scientifically, I'm not sure I can do that. Scientifically, I would argue that the Earth is very special, but we don't know the rest of the universe. It's very hard for science to prove a universal negative like that. The only way we could know that there's no life in space is if God told us.
But until they come up with some sort of scientific proof, the burden, it's not on us.
Yeah.
It's on them. Dr. Jason Lyle.
Anyway, yeah, that's fascinating. Shout out to Wretched Fortis Institute. Fascinating conversation. I'd love to know what you guys think. Do you guys agree with Wretched and Dr. Jason Lyle's? Very fascinating stuff. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. I encourage you to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't. Always remember, guys, Jesus loves you.